And then she told me that you are late. I wanted to introduce it in the budget. Our meeting was in December 23rd. And she said, don't worry, I will do it midterm. So in August 1983, new electronics policy came, which removed licensing for electronics. And you see all these names, BPL, Videocon, and all these industries came out of that delicensing policy. Then, of course, I formally joined the government, left AppLab to my employees to manage. And 7 years I ended up in Delhi. In those 7 years, 6 years really, electronic industry's output grew 8 times. So a policy change which is industry friendly can bring about, I think something like that needs to be done for small and medium sector, which is well known for 2 things. Number one, 45% of the industrial production comes out of, almost 60% of the employment is in this sector. So if government's promotion for industry is primarily to increase employment, and I told recently to one of the Delhi authority that I said, if you do few things and ask industry what they want, you give what they want, and there is a potential in these people to increase their employment twice in a very short time. So by and large, entrepreneurship in India is a struggle. I did not tell you because all of you have been struggling, but it's an enjoyable struggle. Greater is the difficulty, greater is the challenge, greater is the fun. That keeps you young. I think that's why I am able to move around at my age, primarily because it engages you. Entrepreneurship engages you. You have a goal, you have objective, and little bit of success brings great pleasure. On a daily basis, there is a little success. And daily basis, there is a sense of elation. So I think being an entrepreneur has to have a mindset, of course. But once you jump in, it's fun to swim. So therefore, I am sure that younger generation, I see Indian young generation is my great belief that these are the people who will change India. You look at what all things our young people are doing, including in sports. International winning, Olympic is not something that government is doing. Youngsters are feeling I can also attempt to win an award, and they are winning awards, and they will earn more and more. That's also entrepreneurship. So, on this background, I must go back to the reason for which you called me here. What happened in China? What happened in China, I have a story there also. Since 1972, very early before, I was the first person to take my products to Germany in Hanover Fair. One Indian stand. And I was like a new animal in a zoo. So all those people watching, India, electronics, something strange. Like selling coal to Newcastle, as they say. Couple of German customers I got, and we started dealing with them. We still deal with them. We deal with them. But the interesting customer came from China. At that, China was completely government controlled. And there were these government officials, China Import-Export Corporation, like you know all these government corporations in India, how they function. So they came to my booth, and I had an oscilloscope and other test equipment. And he said, we want to buy in China, can you supply? I didn't know whether I can supply or not, but I told him yes. That's what entrepreneur does. So I said yes. So I said, well, how many you need? They said 1,000. At that time in India, in the entire year I was selling 200. So I said yes. But I said terms will be LC. I must have money first. They agreed. And this was, I started in 72, but these people came 3-4 years later. Finally, the order came 4-5 years later. Suddenly, one day, we got an order for 1,000 pieces from CEIC. LC also came. And then for the first time, we had to learn how to make 1,000 oscilloscopes quickly. Since I was exporting first time, in 1983, when we made our supplies, I went to China. I went to Beijing, I went to Shanghai. In the entire nation, everybody was wearing the same clothes, grey, blue or grey. Same dress which is known as Mao's suit. Men, women, same dress. No shops. Government was providing everything. Very few shops on the street. And I visited, they had public companies. I visited one company in Shanghai and one company in Beijing. And they were primitive. And I said, I lost complete respect for Chinese. But I did not hear any complaint from them about our product, and we started selling them every year, this quantity. By 85, 86, this business dried up. And I used to go to China quite often. And I realized, I saw the change which was taking in place with Deng Xiaoping taking over the reins by 1980. China was changing. What China did and why China became a mighty today. The root lies in Deng Xiaoping's policy, by which he told the Western nations, especially United States, that you come to China and I will give you labor at costs that you cannot believe. You open a plant here, in China you cannot sell anything, but you can make everything and repatriate all your profits. You know what that meant? secret of China's success lies there. What happens? A foreign company comes. You see that happening in India also. When foreign company comes, they establish, they start manufacturing something. And there are these Indian youngsters and there in Chinese youngsters who work there, gather. Technology is a very interesting commodity. Till you don't know, it's a secret. Once you know, it is very easy. So these youngsters in China got trained completely differently than our youngsters got trained in India. What happened in China? These foreign companies, European companies, American companies who had started their operations in China were employing young Chinese, and then they found that they were hardworking and doing good job. They started giving more and more work with them. Because basically these foreign companies are controlled not by engineers, except German companies are controlled still by engineering people. American controlled are by businessmen. And if they can get something cheaper, so you will notice one thing. If you look at China today, all the technology that China has got now, which is amazing number and volume, they got it free of cost. Because these companies went there and produced something, that is technology transfer. Technology transfer into hands of local people. So they acquired the technology. They got progressive, then these foreign companies became more ambitious. And then they said, why we should employ this, we should also subcontract. So that's how a lot of Chinese companies, private companies came about. So over that period of next till 90, you could see mushrooming lot of Chinese companies everywhere, making parts for these big companies and also making something for other people. Then lesser and smaller foreign companies also started going to China, and they could buy that product from China cheaper than what they could buy as a spare in their own country. So that's how the China that you see today is an evolution out of that basic process. By the time China started, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan were the centers of manufacturing. When China started developing, these people also started going to China to manufacture. Japanese went. In spite of all the anger that Chinese had against Japanese and Koreans also had against Japanese, they all went to China. So China enriched itself from technology, process technology, product technology, materials technology, from all over the world free of cost, just because they made it cheap. But surprisingly, to the credit of the Chinese government, though the strikes were banned, the Chinese government had very fascinating labor law. It told all these foreign companies that if you employ people outside the town where you are locating your factory, if there is anybody outstation who is going to be employed in your company, then you must provide him dormitory. And you must give him all the 3 meals at the company cost. So when you go to China today, you will find that every factory almost has an attached dormitory. So I used to say, my employee in Thane factory comes from Borivali and some other suburbs of Mumbai, travels it terrible. Everybody who has traveled in Mumbai, you know, by the time the fellow has come, his half the enthusiasm is gone. Here in China, you have a man who is alone staying, and then when my worker comes, he brings with him other problems कि बाप को किधर हॉस्पिटल में लेके जाना है, इसका ये अरेंज करना है. So he comes with pounces his own problem in his head. So for him to work in the factory with peace of mind and some kind of enthusiasm is almost impossible. Where in China, these companies, Chinese companies, have these boys and girls staying there in their dormitory, get free meals, nothing else to do. So what do? Do overtime as much as you want, for fun, for making more money. Because labor laws insisted that you must not work more than 11 hours and you must excess hours, you must pay 1.5 times the wages. And progressively the wages were growing. Today, Chinese wages are almost same as in the United States. But China has elevated itself in engineering to such an extent that for the world it is difficult to compete. Because everybody in the world is buying Chinese parts, Chinese products. So when we in India talk of we should stop buying products, Chinese products, we should not import components. It's good sentiment. But it is not practical. Because even if you stop buying from China, say electronic parts, you buy those electronics parts from anybody in the world, they are all made in China. So you will only end up paying little more. So I think India should rethink, or industrialists should rethink before you have this patriotic spirit, not to buy Chinese product, buy consumers, is a good movement. But not to import parts, not to boycott that essential inputs is not possible, and we should not get into it. So I think the lesson that we have to learn from China is to work on small-scale industries. Small-scale industries policy of 1994 of China is worth following in India today. I purposely bought it, published it in English and sent to everybody who mattered in Delhi. But nobody reads there. So I think, howsoever we may not like Chinese, firstly, Chinese people don't care about Chinese government. So all of you, I am sure, must have gone to China, may be going to China quite often. And you know very well that Chinese people don't love their government, like we don't love our government. And they have nothing against Indians. Many Indians businessmen who go there have good friends in China. So I think diplomatic relationship and border conflict is another thing. Now, sometimes I wonder, what is this border? This border is not drawn by Indians. This border is drawn by British people. An artificial line in areas which was not innovated by Indians even. Now we are saying that is a part of India, which is good sentiment, patriotic, but not practical. Is that really worth fighting for such fight and risking a possible war? Does it make sense? So I think there are various angles you can look at China. Chinese are unreliable, selfish, with ambition to replace United States as a #1 country of the world. It's a good ambition for that country. And there is nothing wrong in India also having an ambition to become #1 country in the world. We will become. We have manpower, we have resources. We can do it, but it is not going to happen without hard work, hard imaginative work. So I think future of India looks good because of the young people. And to an extent, I would say, the changing government. Both things give me confidence that over a period of time we'll do well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was truly inspiring speech, and I'm sure everyone sitting in the audience has gained immensely from the same. Now, I would call upon our trustee, Mr. Chandrasekhar Bhave, to please propose the vote of thanks.
नमस्कार. आभार प्रदर्शनाचं चांगलं काम माझ्याकडे आलं आहे. सर्वप्रथम आपणा सर्वांचे आभार, कारण आपल्या पाठिंब्यामुळेच एवढ्या संख्येत तुम्ही येऊन जो आम्हाला पाठिंबा दर्शवता, त्यामुळेच एंटरप्रेन्योर्स इंटरनॅशनल ट्रस्ट गेली 23 वर्ष सतत नवीन उंची गाठत आले आहे. सिम्बायोसिस इन्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ बिझनेस मॅनेजमेंटचंही आम्ही आभार मानतो, कारण त्यांनी हे इतकं सुंदर सभागृह आम्हाला अगदी थोडक्या अवधीत उपलब्ध करून दिलं. सर्व अवॉर्ड विजेत्या उद्योजकांचे आभार. त्यांची गोष्ट, त्यांचे जे प्रयत्न, त्यांनी कसे स्वतःला घडवलं आणि त्यांचे विचार हे ऐकून आम्हा उद्योजकांना दरवर्षीच नवीन प्रेरणा आणि नव्या दिशा दिसत असतात. त्यासाठी त्यांचे मनापासून आभार. सर्व क्लबच्या पदाधिकाऱ्यांचे आणि उत्साही सहकाऱ्यांचे आभार, कारण त्यांनी अपार कष्ट घेऊन आजचा समारंभ उत्तम पार पडण्याची काळजी घेतली आणि त्यांनीच आपल्यासाठी एवढे सर्वोत्कृष्ट उद्योजक आणि त्यांच्याबरोबर आपली ओळख घडवून आणली. म्हणून सर्व पदाधिकाऱ्यांचे आभार. सर्वात शेवटी देवधर सरांचे आभार, ज्यांना मी गुरु मानतो, कारण मी त्यांच्या कंपनीत 1 वर्ष काम केलं होतं आणि ती पुंजी अजूनही मला उपयोगी पडते, की प्रॉडक्ट डेव्हलपमेंट आणि प्रॉडक्ट कन्सेप्च्युअलायझेशन कसं करावं हे त्या वर्षात जे मी शिकलो त्याची ती शिदोरी अजूनही मला खूप काही देऊन जाते. त्यांनी आपल्याला उद्योजकतेमध्ये रोज मिळणारा आनंद, रोजच्या समस्या, त्यांच्यावरचा विजय आणि त्याच्यातून मिळणारा आनंद ही एक नवी उद्योजकतेची ओळखही आपल्याला करून दिली आणि चीनच्या प्रगतीचा आणि अर्थकारणाचा आलेख अतिशय सुंदर रीतीने आपल्यासमोर मांडला आणि त्याच्यात आपल्याला भारतात देशात आपण काय करू शकतो, उद्योजक आणि स्मॉल आणि मीडियम स्केल इंडस्ट्रीमध्ये आपण काय करू शकतो